The pounding on my door at 6:12 a.m. wasn't a friendly neighbor with fresh muffins. It was Karen Ellis. Clipboard welded to her hand like a holy relic. Her blonde bob perfectly shellacked and her HOA badge dangling like a mall cop medal. Demanding I move my wife's car because it was facing the wrong direction on a private street. I blinked, still holding my coffee, and said the only thing that came to mind, "Morning to you too, Karen. That's my wife's unmarked detective vehicle. She just got off a graveyard shift." Karen didn't flinch. She smiled that tight little smile that never touched her eyes and replied sweetly, "Rules are rules, Alex. Code 7.4b is very clear. Direction of parked vehicles must align with the flow of traffic. No exceptions. I'm calling the police right now." I almost laughed in her face. Almost. Because this wasn't the first time Karen had come for us. 6 months earlier she'd started a whisper campaign that I was antisocial and bad for property values just because I skipped one HOA potluck while on a work deadline. The rumors spread like cheap gossip at a country club. "He works from home. You know, probably up to no good." I stayed quiet back then. Watched. Took notes. People like Karen always overplay their hand eventually. But this morning she just stepped on a landmine wearing heels. 15 minutes later a patrol unit rolled up. A young deputy stepped out looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen practically sprinted over, jabbing her finger at Sophia's car. "Officer, I want this vehicle cited immediately. It's a blatant violation." The deputy glanced at the car, then at Karen. "Ma'am, that's an unmarked police vehicle." "I know exactly what it is," Karen snapped, voice climbing an octave. "She's not above the law just because she carries a badge. This is a private community. Our covenants apply to everyone." The deputy rubbed the back of his neck. "You want me to ticket a detective for parking direction?" Karen crossed her arms. "I want the rules enforced." I stepped inside and called down the hall. "Soph. Honey?" Karen called the cops on your car again. Sophia walked out still in her tactical pants and polo, badge clipped to her belt, looking like she'd aged 10 years in one shift. She stepped onto the porch, voice calm but carrying that edge that made perps confess. "Is there a problem here?" The deputy straightened like someone had plugged him into a wall socket. "No. Detective Rivera. Apparently your vehicle is facing the wrong way." Sophia looked at Karen for a long second. "And you thought the best use of police resources was to call this in?" Karen's cheeks flushed pink. "I am the president of the Oakwood Grove HOA. It is my duty." "Your duty," Sophia cut in softly, "does not include wasting a deputy's time on a non-issue. There's a law enforcement exemption." Karen. Or did the rulebook somehow skip that chapter? The deputy was already backing toward his car. "I'll note this as a frivolous call. Detective. Have a good rest of your morning." As he drove off, Karen stood frozen on my lawn, fists clenched so tight her knuckles went white. I leaned against the doorframe and said quietly, "You might want to read the actual laws before you start dialing 911 next time. Just a friendly neighbor tip." She spun on her heel and stormed off without another word. But I caught the look she shot back, pure venom wrapped in suburban politeness. That was the spark. 3 days later the first official letter arrived. Not a warning. A certified cease and desist demanding we remove our unauthorized motion-activated security camera above the garage within 72 hours. The same camera that had caught the package thief last Christmas and handed the cops crystal-clear footage. I read the letter twice, then walked straight to the filing cabinet where we kept every HOA document since we moved in. Nothing, absolutely nothing, prohibited exterior cameras. In fact, The Architectural Review Committee had signed off on it 3 years ago. Karen was reaching. I spent the next week playing the long game. I smiled at neighborhood barbecues. I nodded politely when Karen lectured everyone about maintaining community standards. Meanwhile, I quietly gathered every email, every text chain, every recorded HOA meeting I could get my hands on. Sophia called in a favor with the county clerk and pulled the full bylaws plus every financial report for the last 4 years. The harassment escalated exactly as I expected. Our trash bins mysteriously went uncollected for 2 straight weeks while the rest of the street was spotless. When I called waste management, the rep whispered, "Your address was flagged for a policy violation." "Sir?" "Something about container placement. A policy that didn't exist." Then one Tuesday afternoon a landscaping crew showed up without warning and started butchering our hedges down to sad little nubs. I walked out calmly. "Who ordered this?" The foreman shrugged and showed me the work order, signed by Karen Ellis. Citing obstruction of sight lines. I took pictures. I saved the invoice they tried to stick us with. I said nothing. Because people like Karen don't just break rules. They think they are the rules. And that kind of arrogance always leaves footprints. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Our neighbors, the Patels, knocked on our door looking shaken. Mr. Patel held up his phone. "You need to see this." The footage was from their Ring camera. At 2:17 a.m., Karen Ellis, wearing all black like a budget ninja, crept into their yard with a pair of bolt cutters and snipped their "no soliciting" sign clean off the post. When the motion light snapped on, she froze for half a second, then glared straight into the lens with pure contempt before walking away like she owned the night. "Mr. Patel's voice cracked. "We complained to the board. They said it was a civil matter." Sophia watched the video once, then looked at me. "Not anymore." She made one phone call using her badge number. By the next afternoon 2 detectives were at Karen's door. She tried the sweet act routine, "I had verbal permission. This is all a misunderstanding," until they showed her the time-stamped footage. Her face went from practiced innocence to fish-out-of-water panic in 0.8 seconds. But that was just the appetizer. While the detectives were still there, the HOA treasurer, a nervous little man named Derek who'd clearly been terrified of Karen for years, finally cracked. Under questioning he admitted Karen had been reallocating association funds. Over $14,000 funneled into her own landscaping, a new pool heater, and, most damning, payments to a shell company called Grove Elite Properties. The deeper the financial crimes unit dug, the uglier it got. Karen and 2 of her loyal board minions had been running a quiet little racket, stack frivolous violations on targeted homeowners, let fines snowball, then push the properties into foreclosure. Grove Elite would swoop in at auction, flip the houses, and kick back a percentage to the HOA beautification fund, which mostly seemed to beautify Karen's backyard. They'd already taken 3 homes in Oakwood Grove. Mine and Sophia's was next on the list. The emergency board meeting was standing room only. Karen tried to run it like nothing had happened, same pastel cardigan, same clipboard, same condescending tone. "Now everyone, let's not jump to conclusions based on baseless accusations." I stood up in the back, Sunday morning, and hit play on the projector. First, the 2 a.m. vandalism video. Then the bank statements. Then the emails where she literally wrote, "Push the Riveras harder. That camera is the perfect excuse. If we can get them out, the whole block falls in line." The room went dead silent except for Karen's breathing, which had turned into short, panicked little gasps. Her face cycled through every shade of red. This is taken out of context. I was protecting property values. You people have no idea what it takes to maintain standards. Sophia stood up next. Still in uniform. Voice low and steady. You weaponized rules against the very people who enforce them. You vandalized private property. You stole from your own neighbors. That's not standards, Karen. That's a felony. The remaining board members, finally brave now that the Queen was bleeding, voted to suspend her on the spot. The county prosecutor's office was already waiting outside with cuffs. Karen's last words as they let her out were almost poetic in their delusion. You'll all regret this when property values drop. Nobody regretted a damn thing. 2 months later the dust had settled in the most satisfying way possible. Karen took a plea deal, restitution. Permanent ban from any HOA board in the state. And a very public resignation. Her husband filed for divorce the same week and moved to Arizona. The house went into foreclosure, ironic. Really. We held a special election. I ran for the board not because I wanted power, but because I never wanted another Karen to get it. I won by a landslide. The first thing we did was rewrite the covenants, term limits, full financial transparency, and a rule that any fine over $500 requires a full board and homeowner vote. Sophia started running community workshops on residents' rights. The first one sold out in 4 hours. And that security camera above our garage? It's still there. Every time it clicks on now, I smile a little wider. Because it isn't just watching for package thieves anymore. It's a reminder. The neighborhood belongs to all of us, not the woman with the clipboard and the God complex. So here's the question I want you to answer honestly in the comments. Was Karen just a passionate neighbor trying to protect property values, or was she exactly the kind of power-tripping Karen the system lets run wild until someone finally pushes back? Who is really in the wrong here, the rules? Or the woman who thought she was above them? Drop your thoughts. I read every single one.